Reichspräsident Karl Dönitz. September 16, 1891 December 24, 1980, was a German naval commander and convicted war criminal who played a major role in the naval history of World War II. He started his career in the Kaiserliche Marine before World War I. In 1918, while he was in command of UB-68, the submarine was sunk by British forces and ๊døːnɪts was taken prisoner. While in a prisoner of war camp, he formulated what he later called Rudeltaktik. At the start of World War II, he was the senior submarine officer in the Kriegsmarine. In January 1943, ๊døːnɪts achieved the rank of Grand Admiral and replaced Grand Admiral Erich Raeder as Commander-in-Chief of the Navy. On April 30, 1945, after the death of Adolf Hitler and in accordance with Hitler's last will and testament, ๊døːnɪts was named Hitler's successor as Staatsoberhaupt, with the title of Reichspräsident and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. On May 7, 1945, he ordered Alfred Jodl to sign the German instruments of surrender in Reims, France. ๊døːnɪts remained as head of the Flensburg Government, as it became known, until it was dissolved by the Allied powers on May 23. Early life and career. ๊døːnɪts was born in Großadmiral in Berlin, Germany, to Anna Beer and Emil ๊døːnɪts, an engineer. Karl had an older brother, Friedrich. In 1910, ๊døːnɪts enlisted in the Kaiserliche Marine. He became a sea cadet on April 4. On April 15, 1911, he became a Fahrkräfte, the rank given to those who had served for 1 year as officer's apprentice and had passed their first examination. On September 27, 1913, ๊døːnɪts was commissioned as a Lieutenant zur See. When World War I began, he served on the light cruiser SMS Breslau in the Mediterranean Sea. In August 1914, the Breslau and the battler cruiser SMS Gerben were sold to the Ottoman Navy. The ships were renamed the Middelly and the Yavuz Sultan Selim, respectively. They began operating out of Constantinople, under Rear Admiral Wilhelm Souchon, engaging Russian forces in the Black Sea. On March 22, 1916, ๊døːnɪts was promoted to Oberleutnant zur See. When the Middelly put into dock for repairs, he was temporarily assigned as airfield commander at the Dardanelles. From there, he requested a transfer to the submarine forces, which became effective in October 1916. He served as watch officer on U-39, and from February 1918 onward as commander of UC-25. On September 5, 1918, he became commander of UB-68, operating in the Mediterranean. On October 4, this boat was sunk by British forces and ๊døːnɪts was taken prisoner on the island of Malta. Interwar period, the war ended in 1918, but ๊døːnɪts remained in a British camp near Sheffield as a prisoner of war until his release in July 1919. He returned to Germany in 1920. During the interwar period, he continued his naval career in the naval arm of the Weimar Republic's armed forces. On January 10, 1921, he became a Kapitän Lieutenant in the new German Navy. ๊døːnɪts commanded torpedo boats by 1928, becoming a corvette Kapitän on November 1 of that same year. On September 1, 1933, he became a frigate Kapitän and, in 1934, was put in command of the cruiser Emden, the ship on which cadets and midshipmen took a year-long world cruise in preparation for a future officer's commission. On September 1, 1935, he was promoted to Kapitän zur See. He was placed in command of the 1st U-boat flotilla division, which included U-7, U-8 and U-9. During 1935, the Weimar Republic's navy, the Reichsmarine, was replaced by the Nazi German Navy, the Kriegsmarine. Throughout 1935 and 1936, ๊døːnɪts had misgivings regarding submarines due to German overestimation of the capabilities of British ASDIC intelligence. In reality, ASDIC could detect only one submarine in 10 during exercises. In the words of Alan Hutham, British Director of Naval Intelligence, Aztec was a huge bluff. German doctrine at the time, based on the work of American Admiral Alfred Mahan and shared by all major navies, called for submarines to be integrated with surface fleets and employed against enemy warships. By November 1937, ʻdøːnɪts became convinced that a major campaign against merchant shipping was practicable and began pressing for the conversion of the German fleet almost entirely to U-boats. He advocated a strategy of attacking only merchant ships, targets relatively safe to attack. He pointed out that destroying Britain's fleet of oil tankers would starve the Royal Navy of supplies needed to run its ships, which would be just as effective as sinking them. He thought a German fleet of 300 of the newer Type 7 U-boats could knock Britain out of the war. ʻdøːnɪts revived the World War I idea of grouping several submarines together into a wolf pack to overwhelm a merchant convoy's defensive escorts. Implementation of wolf packs had been difficult in World War I owing to the limitations of available radios. In the interwar years, Germany had developed ultra-high-frequency transmitters which it was hoped would make their radio communication unjammable, while the Enigma cipher machine was believed to have made communications secure. ʻdøːnɪts also adopted and claimed credit for Wilhelm Marschall's 1922 idea of attacking convoys using surface or very near-the-surface night attacks. This tactic had the added advantage of making a submarine undetectable by sonar. At the time, many including Admiral Erich Raeder felt such talk marked ʻdøːnɪts as a weakling. ʻdøːnɪts was alone among senior naval officers, including some former submariners, in believing in a new submarine war on trade. He and Raeder constantly argued over funding priorities within the Navy, while at the same time competing with Hitler's friends such as Hermann Göring, who received greater attention at this time. Since the surface strength of the Kriegsmarine was much less than that of the British Royal Navy, Raeder believed any war with Britain in the near future would doom it to uselessness, once remarking all the Germans could hope to do was to die valiantly. Raeder based his hopes on wars being delayed until the German Navy's extensive Z plan, which would have expanded Germany's surface fleet to where it could effectively contend with the Royal Navy, was implemented. The Z plan, however, was not scheduled to be completed until 1945. ʻdøːnɪts, in contrast, was not constrained by such fatalism but set about intensely training his crews in the new tactics. The marked inferiority of the German surface fleet left submarine warfare as Germany's only naval option once war broke out. On January 28, 1939, ʻdøːnɪts was promoted to Commodore and Commander of Submarines. World War II. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland, Britain and France declared war on Germany, and World War II began. The Kriegsmarine was caught unprepared for war, having anticipated that war would break out in 1945, instead of 1939. The Z plan was tailored for this assumption, calling for a balanced fleet with a greatly increased number of surface capital ships, including several aircraft carriers. At the time the war began, ʻdøːnɪts's force included only 57 U-boats, many of them short-range, and only 22 ocean-going Type VIIs. He made do with what he had, while being harassed by Raeder and with Hitler calling on him to dedicate boats to military actions against the British fleet directly. These operations had mixed success. The aircraft carrier HMS Courageous and battleship Royal Oak were sunk, battleships HMS Nelson damaged and Barham sunk at a cost of some U-boats, diminishing the small quantity available even further. Together with surface raiders, merchant shipping lines were also attacked by U-boats. Commander of the submarine fleet, on October 1, 1939, ʻdøːnɪts became a rear admiral and commander of the submarines. On September 1 the following year, he was made a vice admiral. With the fall of France, Germany acquired U-boat bases at Lorient, Brest, Saint-Nazaire and La Pallice-La Rochelle. A communications centre was established at the Château de Pignerol at Saint-Barthé copyright Lemmy Dangeau. By 1941, the delivery of new Type VIIs had improved to the point where operations were having a real effect on the British wartime economy. although production of merchant ships shot up in response. Improved torpedoes, better U-boats and much better operational planning led to increasing numbers of kills. On December 11, 1941, following Adolf Hitler's declaration of war on the United States, ʻdøːnɪts immediately planned for implementation of Operation Drumbeat. This targeted shipping along the east coast of the United States. Carried out the next month with only 9 U-boats, it had dramatic and far-reaching results. The U.S. Navy was entirely unprepared for anti-submarine warfare despite having had 2 years of British experience to draw from, and committed every imaginable mistake. Shipping losses, which had appeared to be coming under control as the Royal Navy and Royal Canadian Navy gradually adapted to the new challenge, skyrocketed. On at least 2 occasions, Allied success against U-boat operations led ʻdøːnɪts to investigate. Among reasons considered were espionage and Allied interception and decoding of German Navy communications. Both investigations into communications security came to the conclusion espionage was more likely, or else the Allied successes had been accidental. Nevertheless, ʻdøːnɪts ordered his U-boat fleet to use an improved version of the Enigma machine, the M4, for communications within the fleet, on February 1, 1942. The German Navy was the only branch to use this improved version. The rest of the German armed forces continued to use their then-current 3-rotor versions of the Enigma machine. The new system was termed Triton. For a time, this change in encryption between submarines caused considerable difficulty for Allied code breakers. It took 10 months before shark traffic could be read. By the end of 1942, the production of Type 7 U-boats had increased to the point where ʻdøːnɪts was finally able to conduct mass attacks by groups of submarines, a tactic he called Rudel, and became known as wolfpack in English. Allied shipping losses shot up tremendously, and there was serious concern for a while about the state of British fuel supplies. During 1943 the war in the Atlantic turned against the Germans, but ʻdøːnɪts continued to push for increased U-boat construction and entertained the notion that further technological developments would tip the war once more in Germany's favor, briefing the Far One Quarter to that effect. At the end of the war the German submarine fleet was by far the most advanced in the world, and late-war examples such as the Type XXI U-boat served as models for Soviet and American construction after the war. The Schnorchel and Type XXI boats appeared late in the war because of ʻdøːnɪts's personal indifference, at times even hostility, to new technology he perceived as disruptive to the production process. His opposition to the larger Type 9 was not unique. Admiral Thomas E. Hart, commander of the United States Asiatic Fleet in the Philippines at the outbreak of the Pacific War, opposed fleet boats like the Gato and Belay classes as too luxurious. ʻdøːnɪts was deeply involved in the daily operations of his boats, often contacting them up to 70 times a day with questions such as their position, fuel supply and other minutiae. This incessant questioning hastened the compromise of his ciphers by giving the Allies more messages to work with. Furthermore, replies from the boats enabled the Allies to use direction finding to locate a U-boat using its radio, track it and attack it. ʻdøːnɪts wore on his uniform the special grade of the U-boat War Badge with diamonds, his U-boat War Badge from World War I and his World War I Iron Cross First Class with World War II clasp. Commander-in-Chief and Grand Admiral, on January 30, 1943, ʻdøːnɪts replaced Erich Raeder as Commander-in-Chief of the Navy and Grand Admiral of the Naval High Command. His deputy, Eberhard Goethe, took over the operational command of the U-boat force. It was ʻdøːnɪts who was able to convince Hitler not to scrap the remaining ships of the surface fleet. Despite hoping to continue to use them as a fleet in being, the Kriegsmarine continued to lose what few capital ships it had. In September, the battleship Tirpitz was put out of action for months by a British midget submarine, and was sunk a year later by RAF bombers at anchor in Norway. In December, he ordered the battleship Skarnist to attack Soviet-bound convoys, after reconsidering her success in the early years of the war with sister ship Gneisenau, but she was sunk in the resulting encounter with superior British forces led by the battleship HMS A Duke of York. President of Germany. In the final days of the war, after Hitler had taken refuge in the far one-quarter bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery Gardens in Berlin, Hermann Ring was considered the obvious successor to Hitler, followed by Heinrich Himmler. Ring, however, infuriated Hitler by radioing him in Berlin asking for permission to assume leadership of the Reich. Himmler also tried to seize power by entering into negotiations with Count Bernadotte. On April 28, 1945, the BBC reported Himmler had offered surrender to the Western Allies and that the offer had been declined. In his last will and testament, dated April 29, 1945, Hitler named ʻdøːnɪts his successor as Staatsoberhaupt, with the titles of Reichspräsident and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. The same document named Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels as head of government with the title of Reichskanzler. Furthermore, Hitler expelled both Ring and Himmler from the party. Rather than designate one person to succeed him as far one-quarter, Hitler reverted to the old arrangement in the Weimar Constitution. He believed the leaders of the Air Force and SS had betrayed him. Since the German Navy had been too small to affect the war in a major way, its commander, ʻdøːnɪts, became the only possible successor as far as Hitler was concerned, more or less by default. On May 1, the day after Hitler's own suicide, Goebbels committed suicide. ʻdøːnɪts thus became the sole representative of the crumbling German Reich. He appointed Finance Minister Count Ludwig Schuren von Krosigk as leading minister, and they attempted to form a government. That night, ʻdøːnɪts made a nationwide radio address in which he announced Hitler's death and said the war would continue in the east to save Germany from destruction by the advancing Bolshevik enemy. However, ʻdøːnɪts knew Germany's position was untenable and the Wehrmacht was no longer capable of offering meaningful resistance. During his brief period in office, he devoted most of his effort to ensuring the loyalty of the German armed forces and trying to ensure German troops would surrender to the British or Americans and not the Soviets. He feared vengeful Soviet reprisals, and hoped to strike a deal with the Western Allies. In the end, ʻdøːnɪts's tactics were moderately successful, enabling about 1.8 million German soldiers to escape Soviet capture. Flensburg Government. The rapidly advancing Allied forces limited the ʻdøːnɪts government's jurisdiction to an area around Flensburg near the Danish border. ʻdøːnɪts's headquarters were located in the Naval Academy in Mar one-quarter Ruik, a suburb of Flensburg. Accordingly his administration was referred to as the Flensburg Government. The following is ʻdøːnɪts's description of his new government. These considerations, which all pointed to the need for the creation of some sort of central government, took shape and form when I was joined by Graf Schuren Krosigk. In addition to discharging his duties as Foreign Minister and Minister of Finance, he formed the temporary government we needed and presided over the activities of its cabinet. Though restricted in his choice to men in northern Germany, he nonetheless succeeded in forming a workmanlike cabinet of experts. The picture of the military situation as a whole showed clearly that the war was lost. As there was also no possibility of effecting any improvement in Germany's overall position by political means, the only conclusion to which I, as head of state, could come was that the war must be brought to an end as quickly as possible in order to prevent further bloodshed. Late on May 1, Himmler attempted to make a place for himself in the Flensburg government. The following is ʻdøːnɪts's description of his showdown with Himmler. At about midnight he arrived, accompanied by 6 armed SS officers, and was received by my aide-de-camp, Walter Leutenant. I offered Himmler a chair and sat down at my desk, on which lay, hidden by some papers, a pistol with the safety catch off. I had never done anything of this sort in my life before, but I did not know what the outcome of this meeting might be. I handed Himmler the telegram containing my appointment. "Please read this," I said. I watched him closely. As he read, an expression of astonishment, indeed of consternation, spread over his face. All hope seemed to collapse within him. He went very pale. Finally he stood up and bowed. "Allow me," he said, "to become the second man in your state." I replied that was out of the question and that there was no way I could make any use of his services. Thus advised, he left me at about 1 o'clock in the morning. The showdown had taken place without force, and I felt relieved. On May 4, German forces in the Netherlands, Denmark and northwestern Germany under ßDa-ß's command surrendered to Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery at La One-Quarter-Neberg Heath just southeast of Hamburg, signaling the end of World War II in northwestern Europe. A day later, ßDa-ßNITz sent Admiral Hans-Georg von Friedeburg, his successor as the Commander-in-Chief of the German Navy, to U.S. General Dwight D. Eisenhower's headquarters in Reims, France, to negotiate a surrender to the Allies. The Chief of Staff of OKW, Colonel General Alfred Jodl, arrived a day later. ßDa-ßNITz had instructed them to draw out the negotiations for as long as possible so that German troops and refugees could surrender to the Western powers. But when Eisenhower let it be known he would not tolerate their stalling, ßDa-ßNITz authorized Jodl to sign the instrument of unconditional surrender at 1:30 a.m. on the morning of May 7. Just over an hour later, Jodl signed the documents. The surrender documents included the phrase, "All forces under German control to cease active operations at 23:01 hours Central European Time on May 8, 1945. At Stalin's insistence, on May 8, shortly before midnight, Field Marshal General Wilhelm Keitel repeated the signing in Berlin at Marshal Georg Issakov's headquarters, with General Karl Spaatz of the USAAF present as Eisenhower's representative. At the time specified, World War II in Europe ended. On May 23, the ßDa-ßNITz government was dissolved when ßDa-ßNITz, Jodl, Speer and other members surrendered to British troops of the King's Shropshire Light Infantry at Flensburg. His ceremonial baton, awarded to him by Hitler, is found in the Regimental Museum of the KSLI in Shrewsbury Castle. ßDa-ßNITz's relationship to Jews and Nazism. Despite his post-war claims, ßDa-ßNITz was seen as supportive of Nazism during the war. Several naval officers described him as closely tied to Hitler and Nazi ideology. On one occasion, he spoke of Hitler's humanity. Another event, in which he spoke to Hitler Youth in what was defined as an inappropriate way, earned him the nickname of Hitler Youth ßDa-ßNITz. He refused to help Albert Speer stop the scorched earth policy dictated by Hitler, and is also noted to have declared, in comparison to Hitler, "We are all pipsqueaks. Anyone who believes he can do better than the far one-quarter is stupid." Several anti-Semitic statements by ßDa-ßNITz are known. When Sweden closed its international waters to Germany, he blamed this action on their fear and dependence on international Jewish capital. In August 1944 he declared, "I would rather eat dirt than see my grandchildren grow up in the filthy, poisonous atmosphere of Jewry." On German Heroes Day of 1944, ßDa-ßNITz declared that without Adolf Hitler Germany would be beset by the poison of Jewry, and the country destroyed for lack of National Socialism, which, as ßDa-ßNITz declared, met an uncompromising ideology with defiance. At the Nuremberg trials, ßDa-ßNITz claimed the statement about the poison of Jewry was regarding the endurance, the power to endure, of the people, as it was composed, could be better preserved than if there were Jewish elements in the nation. Initially he claimed, "I could imagine that it would be very difficult for the population in the towns to hold out under the strain of heavy bombing attacks if such an influence were allowed to work." Author Eric Zillmer argues, that from an ideological standpoint, ßDa-ßNITz was anti-Marxist and anti-Semitic. Later, during the Nuremberg trials, ßDa-ßNITz claimed to know nothing about the extermination of Jews and declared that nobody among his men thought about violence against Jews. ßDa-ßNITz told Leon Goldenson, an American psychiatrist at Nuremberg, "I never had any idea of the goings-on as far as Jews were concerned. Hitler said each man should take care of his business, and mine was U-boats and the Navy." ßDa-ßNITz also told Dr. Goldenson of his support for Admiral Bernhard Rogge, who was of Jewish descent, when the Nazi Party began to persecute him. Nuremberg war crimes trials. Following the war, ßDa-ßNITz was held as a prisoner of war by the Allies. he was indicted as a major war criminal at the Nuremberg trials on 3 counts: conspiracy to commit crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity; planning, initiating and waging wars of aggression; and crimes against the laws of war. ʻdøːnɪts was found not guilty on count of the indictment, but guilty on counts and ʻdøːnɪts was, for nearly 7 decades, the only head of state to be convicted by an international tribunal until the conviction of Liberia's Charles Taylor in April 2012. During the trial, Gustav Gilbert, an American Army psychologist, was allowed to examine the Nazi leaders who were tried at Nuremberg for war crimes. Among other tests, a German version of the Uchsler Bellevue IQ test was administered. ʻdøːnɪts scored 138, the third highest among the Nazi leaders tested. ʻdøːnɪts disputed the propriety of his trial at Nuremberg, commenting on count 1 of the accusations that made me guilty during this trial was that I met and planned the course of the war with Hitler. Now I ask them in heathen unregistered trademark S name, how could an admiral do otherwise with his country's head of state in a time of war? Over 100 senior Allied officers also sent letters to ʻdøːnɪts conveying their disappointment over the fairness and verdict of his trial. At the trial, ʻdøːnɪts was charged with waging unrestricted submarine warfare against neutral shipping, permitting Hitler's Commando Order of October 18, 1942 to remain in full force when he became Commander-in-Chief of the Navy, and to that extent responsibility for that crime. His defense was that the order excluded men captured in naval warfare, and that the order had not been acted upon by any men under his command. That knowing 12,000 involuntary foreign workers were working in the shipyards, he did nothing to stop it. Advice in 1945 when Hitler asked ʻdøːnɪts whether the Geneva Convention should be denounced. Hitler's motives were twofold. The first was, reprisals could be taken against Western Allied prisoners of war. Second, it would deter German forces from surrendering to the Western Allies. Instead of arguing the conventions should never be denounced, ʻdøːnɪts suggested it was not currently expedient to do so, so the court found against him on this issue. But as the convention was not denounced by Germany, and British prisoners in camps under ʻdøːnɪts's jurisdiction were treated strictly according to the convention, the court considered these mitigating circumstances. Among the war crimes charges, ʻdøːnɪts was accused of waging unrestricted submarine warfare for issuing War Order No. 154 in 1939, and another similar order after the Laconia incident in 1942, not to rescue survivors from ships attacked by submarine. By issuing these 2 orders, he was found guilty of causing Germany to be in breach of the Second London Naval Treaty of 1936. However, as evidence of similar conduct by the Allies was presented at his trial, and with the help of his lawyer Otto Krutzbauer, his sentence was not assessed on the grounds of this breach of international law. On the specific war crimes charge of ordering unrestricted submarine warfare, ʻdøːnɪts was found not guilty for his conduct of submarine warfare against British armed merchant ships, because they were often armed and equipped with radios which they used to notify the Admiralty of attack, but the judges found, ʻdøːnɪts is charged with waging unrestricted submarine warfare contrary to the Naval Protocol of 1936 to which Germany acceded, and which reaffirmed the rules of submarine warfare laid down in the London Naval Agreement of 1930. The order of ʻdøːnɪts to sink neutral ships without warning when found within these zones was, therefore, in the opinion of the tribunal, violation of the protocol. The orders, then, proved ʻdøːnɪts is guilty of a violation of the protocol. The sentence of ʻdøːnɪts is not assessed on the ground of his breaches of the international law of submarine warfare. His sentence on unrestricted submarine warfare was not assessed, because of similar actions by the Allies. In particular, the British Admiralty on May 8, 1940 had ordered all vessels in the Skagerrak sunk on sight. And Admiral Chester Nimitz, wartime Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, stated the U.S. Navy had waged unrestricted submarine warfare in the Pacific from the day the U.S. entered the war. Thus, although дар paragraph ́nits was found guilty of waging unrestricted submarine warfare against unarmed neutral shipping by ordering all ships in designated areas in international waters to be sunk without warning, no additional prison time was added to his sentence for this crime. дар paragraph ́nits was imprisoned for 10 years in Spandau prison in what was then West Berlin. Later years. дар paragraph ́nits was released on October 1, 1956, and retired to the small village of Orma 1/4 in Schleswig-Holstein in northern West Germany. There he worked on 2 books. His memoirs, Zehn Jahre, 20 Tage, appeared in Germany in 1958 and became available in an English translation the following year. This book recounted дар paragraph ́nits's experiences as U-boat commander and president of Germany. In it, дар paragraph ́nits explains the Nazi regime as a product of its time, but argues he was not a politician and thus not morally responsible for much of the regime's crimes. He likewise criticizes dictatorship as a fundamentally flawed form of government and blames it for much of the Nazi era's failings. In 1973 he appeared in the Thames television production The World at War, in one of his few TV appearances. дар paragraph ́nits's second book, Mein Wechselvolles Leben, is less known, perhaps because it deals with the events of his life before 1934. This book was first published in 1968, and a new edition was released in 1998 with the revised title Mein Soldatisches Leben. Late in his life, дар paragraph ́nits made every attempt to answer correspondence and autograph postcards for others. дар paragraph ́nits was unrepentant regarding his role in World War II, since he firmly believed that no one would respect anyone who compromised with his belief or duty towards his nation in any way, whether his betrayal was small or big. Of this conviction, дар paragraph ́nits writes, "The betrayer of military secrets is a pariah, despised by every man and every nation. Even the enemy whom he serves has no respect for him, but merely uses him. Any nation which is not uncompromisingly unanimous in its condemnation of this type of treachery is undermining the very foundations of its own state, whatever its form of government may be." дар paragraph ́nits lived out the rest of his life in relative obscurity in Orma 1/4, occasionally corresponding with collectors of German naval history, and died there of a heart attack on December 24, 1980. As the last German officer with the rank of Grand Admiral, he was honored by many former servicemen and foreign naval officers who came to pay their respects at his funeral on January 6, 1981. However, he had received only the pension pay of a captain because the West German government ruled all of his advances in rank after that had been because of Hitler. He was buried in Waldfriedhof Cemetery in Orma 1/4 without military honors, and soldiers were not allowed to wear uniforms to the funeral. However, a number of German naval officers disobeyed this order and were joined by members of the Royal Navy, such as the senior chaplain the Reverend Dr. John Cameron, in full dress uniform. Also in attendance were over 100 holders of the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. Wife and children. On May 27, 1916, дар paragraph ́nits married a nurse named Ingeborg Weber, the daughter of a German general Erich Paul Weber. They had 3 children whom they raised as Protestant Christians, viz., daughter Ursula and sons Klaus and Peter. In 1937, Karl дар paragraph ́nits's daughter Ursula married the U-boat commander and Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross recipient Gar 1/4 Nther Hessler. Both of дар paragraph ́nits's sons were killed during the Second World War. The younger, Peter, was a watch officer in U-954 and was killed on May 19, 1943, when his boat was sunk in the North Atlantic with all hands. After this loss, the older, Klaus, was allowed to leave combat duty and began studying to be a naval doctor. Klaus was killed on May 13, 1944 while taking part in an action against his standing orders and involvement in any combat role. Klaus persuaded his friends to let him go on the torpedo boat S-141 for a raid on Chelsea on his 24th birthday. The boat was sunk by the French ship La Combattante and Klaus died, though 6 others were rescued. In popular culture, Karl дар paragraph ́nits has been portrayed by the following actors in film, television and theatre productions. Gert Harkaranci NSCH in the 1976 Czechoslovak film Osvobozena Prahy, Richard Beebe in the 1973 British television production The Death of Adolf Hitler. Raymond Cloutier in the 2000 Canadian-US TV production Nuremberg. Peter Ra One-Quarter Ring in the 2005 German TV miniseries Spear Under. David Mitchell in the 2006 British TV sketch comedy That Mitchell and Webb Look. Simeon Viktorov in the 2006 British television docudrama Nuremberg, Nazis on Trial. Thomas Kretschmann in the 2011 Anglo-German TV production, The Sinking of the Laconia. Summary of career, dates of rank, FAR currency HNRICH Xerxes, April 15, 1911, Lieutenant Xerxes, September 27, 1913, Oberleutnant Xerxes, March 22, 1916, Capita currency Lieutenant, January 1, 1921, Corvette Capita currency Yen, November 1, 1928, Frigate Capita currency Yen, October 1, 1933, Capita currency N Xerxes, October 1, 1935, Commodore, January 28, 1939, Contradmiral, October 1, 1939, Vice Admiral, September 1, 1940, Admiral, March 14, 1942, Groß Admiral, January 30, 1943, Service History, Cadet Training on board the SMSA Hertha, April 1910 March 1911, Naval School, April 1911 September 1912, serving on board the SMSA Breslau, October 1912 September 1916, Airfield Commander, San Stefano and Dardanelles, September December 1916, U-boat training, December 1916 January 1917, Watch Officer, U-39, January 1917 February 1918, Commander, SMA UC-25, March September 1918, Commander, SMA UB-68, September October 1918, in British captivity on Malta, October 1918 July 1919, Staff of the Naval Station of the Baltic Sea, July 1919 March 1920, Commander, Torpedo Boat V5, March April 1920, Commander, Torpedo Boats T-157 and G8, April 1920 March 1923, Advisor and Adjutant, Inspection of Torpedo and Mine Affairs, March 1923 November 1924, Advisor, Naval Defense Department of the Naval Command, November 1924 October 1927, Course and Information, SMSA Nymph, October December 1927, Navigations Officer, SMS Nymph, December 1927 September 1928, Commander, 4th Torpedo Boat Half Flotilla, September 1928 September 1930 First Admiral Staff Officer, Staff of the Naval Station of the North Sea, September 1930 September 1934, Commander, German Cruiser Emden, September 1934 September 1935, Commander, 1st U-Boat Flotilla, September 1935 October 1936, FAR One-Quarter Raeder Unterseeboot, January 1936 October 1939, Befehlshaber der U-Boot. October 1939 January 1943, Oberbefehlshaber der Marine, January 1943 April 1945, Wehrmacht Commander-in-Chief North, April 1945, Reichspräsident and Supreme Commander of the Wehrmacht, May 1945, Decorations and Awards. This article incorporates information from the equivalent articles on the Italian Wikipedia and the German Wikipedia. Iron Cross of 1914, First Class and Second Class, Friedrich Cross, First Class, Ottoman War Medal, Order of the Majidi, Fourth Class, and Schloss Medal, Iron Cross of 1939. A paragraph, First Class, Second Class. Knight of the Royal House Order of Hohenzollern with swords, Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with oak leaves, Golden Party Badge of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, Special U-Boat War Badge with swastika and laurel branches with diamonds, Order of Michael the Brave, First Class, Order of Mjiddia Copyright, First Class, mentioned in the Wehrmachtbericht, twice, Commander's Cross of the Military Order of Savoy, Order of Michael the Brave, 2nd and 3rd class, Order of the Rising Sun, 1st class, Order of Naval Merit in White, see also. Glossary of German World War II military terms, Glossary of Nazi Germany, Last Will and Testament of Adolf Hitler, List of Nazi Party leaders and officials, references, notes. Bibliography. Background information. Further reading, Jason Pipes The Reichsmarine 1919 1935, Jason Pipes Kriegsmarine The Navy 1935 1945, Rebirth of the U-Boat, O'Keefe, David One Day in August, The Untold Story Behind Canada's Tragedy at Deep, Alfred A. Knopf Canada, 2013, ISBN 978-0-345-80769-4, 471 pgs, external links, Karl ʻdøːnɪts at Find a Grave, Archives of news and details about Karl ʻdøːnɪts. U-Boat.net comprehensive reference source for World War I and World War II U-boat information. Historical Enigma message Grand Admiral ʻdøːnɪts announcing his appointment as Hitler a Unregistered trademark S successor.